The Camp Half-Blood Chronicles may be over, but Rick Riordan still has some tricks up his sleeve. Hello, people of the internet. Welcome to another one of my videos in which I try and make decent Rick content with no fancy camera, no external microphone, and just my desk lamp. So recently, the Camp Half-Blood Chronicles came to an end with the Tower of Nero, and it was a very bittersweet ending, honestly, because Rick wrapped a lot of things up. It's been really hard for some of us knowing that there isn't going to be another book coming out this year because we've been so used to there always being a book, and we've had that to rely on for so long now. And it's all done. But we do have a new era coming up with the Percy Jackson, The Olympians TV show on Disney Plus, and the King Chronicles movies on Netflix. That's really fun to look forward to. I'm super excited for those. Rick and Becky are working right alongside everyone else on those projects. They've already started their own production company, and it's called Mythomagic. Y'all, we can't make this stuff up. It's amazing. But now that the main books are over, where does that lead us? Rick Riordan left some hints in this final book that's made it seem that more than likely this isn't the last we'll see of anyone in the Percy Jackson world. So here are 4 side books that I think are very likely to happen, if not are almost guaranteed to happen, as spin-offs, side books, or standalone novels for the Camp Half-Blood Chronicles. I won't be talking about Magnus Chase or the King Chronicles. I will really only be focusing on things related to Percy Jackson, the Olympians, the Heroes of Olympus, and the Trials of Apollo. There is a spoiler alert for the Tower of Nero, the newest book that came out, because that's really where a lot of evidence for these side books comes from. So if you haven't read that already, don't keep watching this, go read that first. I also want to put a quick disclaimer about art. I will be showing art in this video, but none of it is mine, so I will link to the artists below for one of their social media so you can go check them out. A lot of it will be official art and book covers and everything, but I will still post Viria and John Rago's art below. Also, if I pronounce any names wrong in this, I'm sorry. I'm trying my best, but I will more than likely be mentioning a lot of Greek names too that have appeared in the books, so if I'm saying Tumblr Fox wrong, I'm sorry. So let's get on with it, shall we? Number 1 on the list, and the most likely book that we're going to get out of any of these, Solangelo standalone book. It's more than likely going to happen. I can almost guarantee that this book is going to be written because, y'all, honestly, the setup for the Solangelo book in this last book was absolutely insane. If Rick doesn't end up writing this someday, I am going to scream into a pillow, probably one of those back there. In an interview with the Half-Blood Report, Rick was asked about this Will and Nico side book that's strongly hinted at in this last book. Rick said, if and when he writes it, which isn't a guarantee that we're going to get it, but it's an if and when. Take that as you will. It's not a confirmation that it's in the works. It's not in the works as of right now that we know of, but more than likely it will happen if and when. Those were Rick's words. Honestly, if he were to write it, it would probably be announced in 2 years or something, is what I'm guessing. Right now he's really busy working with the TV show and the movies, so that takes up a lot of his time, and Rick has already submitted a manuscript for a new book that he's working on. It's not mythology related, but it's still really exciting to know that Rick is still going to be creating things that we can read and love and become new fans of. I'm super excited for that. But this Solangelo book that's more than likely to happen, the plot would be centered around the prophecy that Rachel gives Will and Nico at the end of the Tower of Nero. This prophecy is about Bob the Titan and Will and Nico having to go into Tartarus to rescue him and bring him back, either into the underworld or the mortal world. This would also likely include the troglodytes from this last book. They would likely help Nico and Will tunnel their way into Tartarus to get Bob and then probably bring them back out. Because the Doors of Death, which was previously the way that Percy and Annabeth had escaped Tartarus, are not sealed down into one place close like they used to be. That was ended in the Heroes of Olympus. Now Tartarus is back to normal, so getting in and out would likely be much more difficult, but luckily Nico found the troglodytes. It would be really cool if this book was an alternating perspective between Will and Nico. I would absolutely love that. We've already heard Nico's point of view from the Blood of Olympus, the last book in the Heroes of Olympus series. I thought Rick did a really good job writing from Nico. It wasn't in first person, it was in third person perspective, but I just, seeing that again be so great. We could get more of Nico's backstory if we get to see him narrate again. Just a lot of things that weren't really touched on last time. Like, yes, we know what happened to his mom. We went through the whole Bianca thing. And we know how he met Hazel. But stuff has happened since then, you know? Like, we don't know exactly how he and Will got together. And we don't know how he's been dealing with Jason's death. Like, we know that he's come to terms with it, but we don't know exactly what that moment was like when he felt him die. We don't know how he's been coming to terms with things at camp. Like in this last book, we heard him describe doing camp activities like climbing the lava wall, and that was so exciting to read about. And I'm just like, I want to hear about Nico doing random things at camp that all the other campers do. That made my heart so happy, I'm just saying. And if we got a Will's perspective too, oh my gosh, that would be so great. We would get to learn a lot about his mom, Naomi. Can we make a shout out to the fact that he's from Austin, Texas? Rick Riordan is from Texas, so I just think that's really great. And also, I live in Texas, and it just makes me so happy knowing that, like, oh my gosh, what? It's probably the most personal connection I have to one of these characters, honestly. I would love to hear about his mom. I'd love to hear about how he got to camp and how he sort of started settling with things. I was really hoping in this last book that Will would bring up losing Michael and Lee back in Percy Jackson and the Olympians, and he had to become head counselor of the Apollo cabin in the middle of the Titan War. A lot of people forget about that. So I think that if we got to kind of see some of those things that a lot of people have headcanoned that he struggled with a lot, like Nico has struggled with a lot of his losses, I think that would just be so great for his character to build that background for us that we don't really have, even though we know it's probably there, but we haven't canonically seen it in the books. I would really like to see that. And then, oh my gods, please, can we get a Solangelo kiss? Like, it didn't happen in this last book, but if Rick does write the Solangelo side book that we're all betting our money on, I mean, really, a whole book about Will and Nico's prophecy, and you're not gonna give me a kiss, Rick Riordan? Really? That's not fair. I do like, though, how Rick has kind of portrayed Will and Nico's relationship as being very slow going, and it's super like intimate, and like you can really tell that they love each other, and like they'll like squeeze each other's hands. And then at the end of the Tower of Nero, Will had his arm around Nico while they were sitting by the campfire, and they were like snuggling into each other's sides. It was so cute. So depending on when the plot of this book would take place, whether it be a few months after the Trials of Apollo ends or a few weeks, we'll get to see where their relationship stands. Rick has never been one for epilogues, but there was that one line in the Blood of Olympus where Nico jokes about being the flower boy at Hazel and Frank's wedding, and that always struck with me. It's like, wow, that's really funny that Rick's joking about like people getting married and stuff, and I was low-key sad that Apollo didn't make fun of Will and Nico in that aspect in this last book, but it's okay. Okay, enough of Solangelo. I could talk about them all day. Book number 2, and this one is mostly self-indulgent, honestly, because I really want to see it. The second standalone book that I think we'll see from the CHB Chronicles would be about Calypso or Georgina, or really anyone at the way station, honestly. So with this last book, I was really upset that we didn't even see Calypso at the end. Like, we saw everyone else. Like, I know we found out that she was okay, really happy with high school. She was at band camp, living her best life. Like, that's great. That's wonderful. but we didn't see her, and I was really upset about that. Like, she's one of my favorite characters. I really liked her story and the arc that has progressed with everything that she's gone through. Cleo was my favorite couple until Solangelo just like completely shined, quite literally, in this last book. And not seeing her get to use her magic like I thought we would was just really disappointing. Like, Rick totally set up like, okay, Calypso needs to work hard to regain her magic and her powers so that she can use them again and like she can fight and stuff. I was like, yes, we get to see that, right? Right? I was very wrong. And it made me very sad. I think it would be really cool if the Oracle at the way station produced a prophecy for Calypso and we got to see her go on her own adventure. Or if not, you know, just a really weird random thing with her and Leo. Like, I'd be totally happy with that. The whole way station crew has so much potential for a side book. Like, Georgina wasn't even confirmed to be Apollo's daughter at the end of this book. Rick left that open, and I was like, Rick, you didn't confirm that? What is going on? What are you doing? I'm just really like puzzled by that because I thought Rick would tie up a lot of things at the end of this book, and then he didn't. He left quite a few things open, and I was like, side books maybe? So yeah, Georgina finally finding out if she's actually Apollo's daughter or not is still maybe a possibility if Rick were to write a standalone book. I think that would be really cool to read about. I would love to see the environment there grow, and they're all one happy family, and it's really great. Also, I was low-key mad at how he left Cleo's relationship as just being complicated. Like, really? It's been, what, 2 months since we had last seen Leo in the series? Leo appears at the end of The Burning Maze, and that scene made me cry my eyes out, but, you know, it's etched into my brain. I can't forget that. Then after that, Apollo went to Camp Jupiter and fought, and then after that, he did like a 6-week travel back to New York, and it was at the end of June, beginning of July at the end of the book, after Apollo had regained his godhood. So that's a lot of time for Leo and Calypso to have their relationship develop, for them to establish a routine and get into this new habit of living in a normal society. They're still complicated. Okay, I mean, I get it, like, they're teenagers, and Calypso's gone through a lot, and so has Leo, but also a little more of an explanation would have been really nice, but unfortunately for that particular book, we didn't really have time to explore each Heroes of Olympus character's relationship, so I understand why we didn't spend a lot of time there, but it would have been really nice to see. So yeah, this is probably the least likely on my list to actually happen, but I would really like to see it. The third book that I think is likely to happen as a side book from the CHB Chronicles is a Hunters of Artemis book. This possibility was actually brought up by Rick in the Half-Blood Report interview that he did. As we all know, the Hunters of Artemis were searching for the Tumisian fox at the end of this book and throughout the Trials of Apollo series. I actually thought that was going to come into play in this last book, but it ended up not being important or relevant to the plot. So I was like, Rick mentioned that a lot of times, and he didn't even like resolve it, but the myth with that is that the fox can't be captured, you're just going to endlessly chase it as prey. Rick actually said in that interview, hey, you know, that could be a possibility because they're still looking for this fox. What would that journey be like? And I'm like, oh, that would be really cool, because then we get to see like Talia and Raina being like sisters to each other and really like being best friends, and then we'd probably get a Talia point of view for the first time, and that would be amazing to see. We could see how she's coping with Jason's death, we could hear more of her backstory, her time with Annabeth and Luke, her time spent with her mom. We could see how she's handled being immortal for how long has she been immortal in this series? 3 years? Something like that. And maybe that book could be set a little further in the future because the Hunters of Artemis are immortal until they either die or choose to leave the hunt. So it'd be nice if we saw them sort of as like a later down the road, hey, they're still chasing this fox and they finally like caught up to it. It'd be really cool to see how time has passed. Even if it's a little time, maybe a few weeks, a few months, or if it's a few years that be even cooler, honestly. Maybe we would even get to see Reina finally find someone. Her romance life has kind of been on the fence between a lot of fans, and me trying to keep it as neutral as possible. Rick has stated several times that, of course, her and Talia aren't a thing. That's even canonically stated in the books. And at the end of the Tyrant's Tomb, Reina joins the Hunters of Artemis, mostly just to find herself. She's like, okay, I need a break from this. I don't want to think about it for a while. I want to keep fighting and being awesome because she's bad A rah rah. But I just really need a break from this whole normal teenage life thing. So she joins the Hunters of Artemis. So if this book is set a few years in the future, possibly, maybe we could get to see how Reina has found herself and really come to love herself as a person. And then maybe she'll find someone and start a relationship. And I think that'd be really sweet to see. This, of course, would have to require her to leave the Hunters. But still, like, Reina deserves a really happy ending. Maybe we can even see Hilla again. That'd be so great. Oh my god. It's like, Queen of the Amazons, baby. Okay, the fourth and final book I'm gonna list on this is probably the second least likely for us to see, but still one that was actually hinted at in this last book and quite possibly could happen. A triple crossover story between the Egyptian myths, the Norse myths, and the Greek and Roman myths. Rick had stated in an interview a while back that carrying out a triple crossover would be a lot of work, and he would have to keep track of so many characters, and he was kind of like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do that, but also at the same time, it would be so cool, and fans have been asking for it for years now. I thought Magnus would actually show up or make some sort of mention into this last book, because in the Magnus Chase short stories it's mentioned that he's off visiting Annabeth, so I thought maybe she would mention him at some point in this last book, but she didn't. So I know that they are still reconnecting and everything. Rachel lives next to the House of Life, and we haven't seen the Canes for a long time, so that would be really interesting. Magnus has already met Percy. Obviously, he's cousins with Annabeth. Percy and Annabeth have already met Carter and Sadie Kane in the Demigods and Magicians crossovers. If you haven't read those, go read them. They're amazing. But Magnus and the Canes haven't crossed roads yet, and seeing that would be so amazing. Creating what I've come to call a tri-cross, kind of as a shortening of triple crossover, would be so great. In this last book, Rick strongly hints at one possibly happening, and that really surprised me. Chiron states that he had to have an emergency meeting with a cat and a severed head, which we assume to be Bast from the Cane Chronicles, the cat goddess, and Mimir from Magnus Chase, the severed head, that Blitz and Hearth have strong connections to. This meeting of those three big players of those worlds is really significant. Like, something big had to have been happening, right? I thought maybe it would be Loki from Magnus Chase, because at that time, the Ship of the Dead, the last Magnus Chase book, was taking place around the same time that this last Trials of Apollo book took place. So I thought, well, Loki's trying to destroy all 9 worlds, so maybe that's what they were talking about, because that's way more significant than Nero just trying to destroy New York. But then in the Half-Blood Report interview, which if you can't tell has been super resourceful for all this information, Rick said that he left that open on purpose so that that's a plot line that he can explore if he wants to in the future. So I'm like, okay, it's not Loki then. It's what would that threat be and how would they address it? So Loki's already been addressed. That's done with. But what would be so big that 3 different mythologies, technically 4, but Roman and Greek are so similar that it's like, we may as well just mush them together. Why would a tricross have to happen? You know? What is so big that a triple crossover would have to happen? I'm all for it. Sign me the heck up for all of it. Just thinking about how he's not planning to write any big, like, 5-book series anymore. A tricross? That would be a thick standalone book. Like, I know the thickest Rick has gone has been like, what, around 550 pages in the Heroes of Olympus or something like that. A triple crossover, y'all. That monstrosity of a book would be so great to have. It would hurt my hands holding it, trying to read it. But man, would it be worth it. As a crossover, I would pay way more money to see than Avengers. Percy Jackson, Magnus Chase, Carter Kane, back to back, in the middle of a battle, just kicking butt and slaying everything in their paths. Like, sign me up. Let's do it. Though because this would be such a big project for Rick to take on, I don't see him doing this before he would like the Hunters of Artemis book or the Solangelo book. So more than likely this would be way farther in the future than we would want to see. We all want it right now. But Rick is one man. He can only do so much. Honestly, I really think he might write more for Magnus Chase and the King Chronicles, as like there might be standalone books with that, but that's probably a video for another time. Anyway, in conclusion, this universe is far from over, alright? Yes, the Camp Half-Blood Chronicles have come to an end after all these years, but there's still so much potential out there. If he goes back to any of these characters from whichever mythologies, I'd be so happy to see that, and I'd welcome it with open arms because I miss it already. I miss it so much. Not seeing that last page having a new book title for the next Rick Riordan book really made me sad. And I can't wait for the day that we hear the announcement that he's started working on one of these side books, and it's going to be so exciting. But for now, we wait to hear news on the shows. Casting is far away. They need the script first. Let them work. Stop bombarding Rick with questions. Please and thank you. Okay, everyone, that's it. Stay safe, stay healthy, and please, please be kind to each other.